Jennifer Herzog is our certified, how do you say that, Feldenkrais? Practitioner and yoga teacher. She has over 12 years of experience teaching movement and working with professional performers. God, I'm not reading this right. Seniors and children. Jennifer brings warmth, creativity, and enthusiasm to her teaching. She empowers others to reconnect to their own potential for growing, healing, and learning. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, or should I just pass this over to you? Anyways, here's Jennifer.
Lowest setting. Not quite. Good. How does that sound? Testing? Pretty good, yeah? I just have to speak up a bit. Yeah. A little higher. How's that? Okay. So this is all a little bit new to me, but thank you so much, Willem, for the introduction, and thanks to Bob for welcoming me and bringing me here and making all of this so technologically snazzy. You know, talking about what I do, the first problem is nobody has heard of Feldenkrais, and it's kind of a weird word, but really it's just the name of a man, a scientist, who came up with a method for helping people improve their overall well-being through using movement. So thankfully, I started with yoga, and that was pretty weird 20 years ago. But it's become a little bit more of a known thing in terms of the benefits for anyone to improve their flexibility and their movement and their quality of life. And I became interested in Feldenkrais as a yoga teacher because I found that it was a really unique approach to getting at the things that you can't quite change about yourself through normal means. So we have often a kind of a typical approach or a standard approach to how to improve our physical health. And so things like exercise, stretching, movement. Usually we have this idea that it's better to do more. So improvement happens by straining or going past our capacity. And Feldenkrais is really very interesting because it works with awareness, and awareness is one of those words that's pretty hard to define. But I'm going to give you a little 3 or 4 minute exploration around awareness, and you can maybe come up with your own conclusions about how awareness differs from using your awareness when it comes to moving is very different than exercise. So Feldenkrais fits in these really broad categories, and one is fitness, one is health, one is mental health, emotional health. Feldenkrais helps with performance, helps with everyday movement, just everyday functional things. So even though it's kind of a strange word, I'll try and really keep to what's important, which is functional everyday things. So it's really important if you want to be able to live and enjoy your life and play with your grandchildren or drive your car, that you have the movement available to you to do those things. So we'll do a short movement lesson a little later that speaks directly to some physical movement. But we're going to start with a really short, sort of 3 or 4 minute exercise here with your willingness and willingness to participate in something a little unusual but very easy and not threatening. And it's going to be a small movement with your hand. And using your hand, you're going to be moving very, very slowly and delicately. And you're going to notice that it's the stuff that you don't usually notice that makes a difference. So maybe take your chairs just a little bit back from the table, just so you have a little bit of room, and clasp your hands in your lap. So what do I mean by clasp? I'm holding papers here. Just give me a moment. Oh, Bob is demonstrating beautifully. Okay, so who has their right finger on top when they clasp their hands? Okay. And who has their left? We've got half and half, and some people aren't participating. Maybe clasp them again and see which finger's on top. You'll have to put your phone down probably. Oh, interlace. Let me put my papers down and I'll demonstrate. There we go. Okay, so how familiar is that? Well, we'll find out. Change the clasp so the other finger's on top. Oh, you're doing it. That's advanced. That's too advanced for this intro evening. You have to do it palm to palm. So you just change which finger's on top. Oh, you guys are doing fancy things here. That's above and beyond the scope of this talk. So it's kind of funny to see that something really simple can become so habitual in a good way. It's not a bad thing. But there are some habits that we all have that really are out of our awareness that can sometimes limit our movement. And so go back and forth. Just clasp back and forth and start to realize that probably if you played with this a little bit over time, it would become more familiar, right? Okay, so now that I have your attention, separate your hands and put them on your lap somewhere comfortably. And if you dare to close your eyes, you'll get more impact of this little awareness exercise. Let me just see here. I'd like you to choose which hand you'd like to use, close your eyes, and just gently run your thumb over the outside of your index finger, whichever hand you've picked, all the way down towards the knuckle. It's a very soft, small movement. Run it up and run it down. So it's very likely that to do this movement to its fullest, it's not something that you take the time to bother doing. But all of a sudden, there are all sorts of details to notice about the texture of your finger and how that feels running your thumb up. So doing it nice, you have to do it slowly enough to notice those subtle details. And now begin to bring your thumb to the tip of your index finger and around to the inside. So now you're running your thumb up and down the inside of your index finger and out the outside. So start to join those two movements and you'll bring the thumb up and over the top like going over a hill. And just tune in to your breathing. Just make sure that you are not making this a task, because this is really just a kind of an awareness exercise. And so keep your breathing nice and easy. And then really take your thumb, if you can, to that valley between the first two fingers and then run it up the middle finger. And up and down a couple of times. And now in order to do this easily, you actually have to keep your hand fairly soft. So be curious, because you just maybe have never done this quite. And up to the tip of the middle finger and into the inside. Down the middle finger and up the ring finger. And do that a couple of times until it becomes familiar. Remember how unfamiliar that clasp was a moment ago? This is unfamiliar too, but it can become quite familiar quite quickly. And maybe that'll tweak your curiosity just enough. Go down the outside of the outside of your ring finger and into the valley between the ring finger and the pinky, and up the pinky, and recognize that every finger that you move along is a very different movement. You have to organize your hand differently, and by the time you get to the outside of your pinky finger, you'll probably have to maybe let go of some tension in your wrist and your arm, and then come back up the other way and make this a smooth, easy journey. Now, why on earth would anybody ever do this? I see some of you not doing it, but I won't mention any names. This approach, because it's not working with strength and power, it's working with your brain. Don't worry, you don't have to be good at it. That's the good news too. So just now make it a little bit of a game and just go up and down quickly a couple times. Up and down quickly a couple times, like a roller coaster, going up and down. All the way around to the pinky. And if you haven't closed your eyes yet, you might want to just experience this with your eyes closed. Because what you may find is that by working with your hand and using your brain in this way, other things may have changed. So after you've gone up and down, sort of softly, quickly, and easily several times, let your hand rest in your lap. Close your eyes again if you're comfortable doing that. I get that you might not. Take a couple of breaths. And just sit up in your chair and look around and feel the two hands and see if there's any differences in how you sense your hands. This is the awareness piece. We're looking for things that maybe you don't usually notice. I'm going to segue this. Now, if you had spent some time doing this, I'll even have the courage to do this now. Look at a neighbor and see if you can see which hand they picked. Something has the potential to change. Did anybody, so just look around and sort of see, take a guess. No? Now, did anybody notice any different? Okay, okay, y'all know. Oh, so you did, okay. Oh, okay. Well, that's sort of cheating, but that's okay. So this is kind of a fitness model for lazy people because you actually don't have to do very much in Feldenkrais to create a big change. And when I work with the groups, it's called awareness through movement, and we do gentle movements. And there's a almost 10-minute video, which is very nicely done. It's a little longer than it needs to be, but in my opinion. But I think there's some really great explanations and some great testimonials, and I think you'll find it interesting and applicable. So I'll hand this over to Bob to do the video.
And see to it that your left elbow is to the right of your right elbow.
If you looked into a window right now, you might say, what in the world are these people doing? They are participants in the Feldenkrais method, an internal journey to rediscover their balance, flexibility, and coordination.
Please roll over onto your back.
Unlike other modalities in the fitness industry, where you focus on strength, cardiovascular or aerobic activity, or stretching to lengthen, the Feldenkrais method deepens your sense of how you move, teaching you strategies to reduce effort and increase quality and coordination. It's an owner's manual for the human body.
Several years ago, my husband started taking Feldenkrais, and he came home telling me all these great things, and for a long time he kept suggesting that I take the class. And I was reluctant to because, it wasn't part of my normal workout regimen. One day he came home and told me about how he cut his running time for a mile by about 2 minutes, and I became interested, and I started taking Feldenkrais. I run faster. I feel that my technique is much better in my kickboxing classes, and I feel that I don't have to exert as much energy.
The Feldenkrais method has a profound effect on one's ability to act with precision, power, and spontaneity. This method recognizes the brain as core of movement. It works in a gentle way using patterns of movement that exist deep within us to guide each individual to their most effective selves. By doing a series of slow, controlled movements with awareness, breaking them down into their smallest components, and looking at them in relation to gravity, we find the most effective and graceful way of moving. It enhances fitness performance. Your stamina improves, your yoga practice deepens, even climbing the stairs or reaching for a box of cereal becomes easier.
You sort of handle situations more easily. I guess is what I would say is what you bring to the workplace from taking Feldenkrais.
And then interesting, I talked to a few of my professional dancer friends in the world of ballet, and they said, oh, Feldenkrais is the best, which I thought was very intriguing. But the thing that I found I like so much about it is that it's not only affected my movement and my tennis game, which has gotten much better, and it needed it, but it also has given me a better developed sense of awareness generally. And sort of, you know, there's an expression they use in Feldenkrais all the time, which is what will best serve your intention. And what I find is that it's in my life now, I think, what is my intention? And how can I best serve that? And that's a very valuable thing.
As awareness of our movement is increased, tensions in the body are released, and with it comes positive shifts in emotional and thinking patterns. Developed in Israel in the 1940s by Moshe Feldenkrais, Doctor of Science, in response to his own crippling knee injury, the method was first presented in the United States in the Bay Area in the early 1970s. Dr. Feldenkrais studied intensively in psychology, neurophysiology, child development, and other health-related disciplines, developing his system for accessing the power, or intelligence, of the central nervous system to improve human functioning. He found that with quiet exploratory movement, process-oriented and not goal-directed, the human mind could evoke new neuromuscular patterns in an organic manner, much as the way babies learn to move. The importance lies in the attention given to the movement, the quiet exploration of a wide variety of options, and to its effect on the entire body. This is Dr. Feldenkrais's magic. He found a simple and enjoyable way to help us reach our full potential.
I was injured and I couldn't walk for 3 months a year ago, and doing Feldenkrais was just the greatest opportunity for me to kind of remind my body where it can pull strength from. Now everything is fine and it's great and I'm wonderful, but I feel like every time I lay down, whether it's for yoga or Pilates or Feldenkrais, I draw that strength again into my body, and I remind myself kind of where I'm weak and where I can compensate for those weaknesses.
Just as important as building muscle is how all the muscles work together to support the skeleton in action. A non-judgmental atmosphere allows individuals of all ages and abilities to learn at their own pace. This method increases vitality and has benefited those dealing with pain and disabilities such as arthritis, asthma, even cerebral palsy, stroke, and Parkinson's disease.
In my office, I found that since I've sort of been doing Feldenkrais myself, that a patient comes to me with back pain, and I'll get them up and I'll ask them to walk, and I'll watch them walk, and inevitably they don't know how to walk. They're stiff, they move their arms and their legs, and no other part of their body moves. It's not something I was that aware of prior to this, but after my own experience with Feldenkrais, I can see that now.
I just felt a kind of elegance and grace that would come from my having taken part in the class, and I felt as I was getting older, and I am a senior citizen, I decided that I thought there were 3 very important elements that I had to keep in mind, and one was flexibility, which Feldenkrais offers. Another is posture, which I think is very important, and another was balance. I think my ankle turned, and I skidded on the side of my shoe, and I just fell right in front of everybody in Moravos, which is a Greek restaurant down on 57th Street. And I was aware that I kind of was not scared. I knew how to fall, and I knew how to get up. I felt a kind of confidence in my own body that I could retrieve myself without feeling that I had been hurt or damaged in any way. So I think in that way, that kind of body awareness is very essential, and I found it very, very important.
Several years ago, my children were telling me, you know, Mom, you're getting all stooped over. And Feldenkrais has straightened me out without any pain or without even my awareness of it. The process has made such a difference in the way I stand and the way I move. So for me personally, as a human being, it's been wonderful. It's also been wonderful for me as a pianist. I have become more aware of many muscles that I have known intellectually I should be using optimally to play the piano, muscles in my back that I have not accessed before.
This is really an important synchronistic piece that belongs in the gym, that belongs in a health environment. When most people are working out, they're totally unaware of their bodies. They are doing repetitive movements. They're doing the same thing over and over and over. They're assuming they should be in pain and really don't understand. They actually relate to their pain as their aliveness. And with Feldenkrais, they start to enjoy feeling good. And that shifts into their workouts, and you can see a big difference. I'm really excited here to see that at the gyms, people are really lining up for Feldenkrais now. As that moves around the country, we're going to see a whole new level of wellness.
The method's success and popularity continue to grow. People all over the world are benefiting from this work. You can't really appreciate the value of this method until you've tried it.
Okay, is everybody still awake? Does everybody want to just do Feldenkrais now? That's a lot of testimonials, really positive testimonials. That's interesting to a point. I realize you probably still don't understand how it works. One way I like to talk about it is, I used the word habit before, and habits are just ways of moving that become familiar to us, and that there's always habits that kind of rob us of our optimal movement. So just ways of sitting at our desk, ways of walking, and really these amount to ways of moving that are not so efficient. And so Feldenkrais is really good and very has a gentle approach to finding the most efficient movement so that you don't cause excess wear and tear on joints and whatnot. And because it works with your brain's capacity to organize that movement, you're getting to the source. So the source of movement's not the muscle, it's actually in how your nervous system organizes it. I would love to do a little another experiential piece, but I want to get a sense of who would be interested in that. So just a show of hands, and I don't take it personally. So we've got 30, 40, 50%. Is that 50%, Bob? Is that worth going, Willem? Oh yeah, oh boy. Okay, so the other folks can watch, and it's going to be more of a kind of a sitting movement lesson. These are called movement lessons. So have enough space around you to come and sit at the front of your chair with your feet flat, both feet flat. Good. And just sit and just maybe take a moment to turn and look around you to the left and to the right and see how easy that movement is. Yeah. So could you see behind you if you were going to shoulder check right now? Of course, you do that every day. You did that to get here. But there's no end of things that are worth improving in life, right? Including shoulder checking. Good. Okay. And notice for yourself how, just how you feel sitting. And, okay, we're going to start with a movement of your arms. And I'll have to put my papers down again. So cross your arms, one hand to one shoulder or arm, whichever you can reach, and the other hand to here. So your arms are crossed, and your elbows are kind of in front of you. Good. Now, drop your head a little and look down towards the floor, and then up towards the ceiling. Now, one of the reasons this method works is because you're looking for the easiest way to do something. So look all the way down and look all the way up. Breathe. You can breathe in and out nice and easily as you go. Make sure that you're sitting a bit away from your chair, because this movement requires that your back moves. Yeah. Great. Very nice. Good adjustments, everybody. So you're already gaining some awareness of what you need to do to get your back in motion. Good. So up and down. And look for ways of doing this that are the most efficient. Go ahead and change your arms. I see somebody did that. Go ahead and look down and look up. And take a breath in, take a breath out. you don't have to think about this as a stretch, as more of an exploration about how does this work? How, when you look down, what does your back do? What does your pelvis do? And when you look up, your chest lifts and you take a breath in. Good, good. Let your arms rest for a moment, and we'll resume that position in a second or two. And the next movement will ask, you don't have to do this well, that you lift one hip just a little bit and put it down and lift the other hip. So go ahead and put your arms in this cross position. A lot of Feldenkrais lessons seem a little wacky, a little unconventional. So go, and your elbows can just rest down on your chest there. Yeah, that's it. Don't work too hard, right? And so lift and come away from the back of your chair and lift one hip a little bit as though you could slip a piece of paper out from underneath it and look down at that hip. Good. And lift the other hip and look down at that. And you're not on camera, I am, so you'll be fine. Lift one hip, keep your feet down on the floor. Lift the other hip, keep your foot down. That's right. So you're just shifting your weight, really. Your ribs move, your shoulders move, and you're shifting your weight a little bit side to side. Good. And you're going to look down at the hip that's lifting. That's tricky. So habits are just another way of saying patterns. This is a movement pattern, and let that go. And if you don't do this every day, it's not going to be familiar. And you know what? Feldenkrais works by using unfamiliar movement, because why would you do the same thing you always do? So you introduce some things that are kind of simple and seem obvious, but in fact you actually don't do them every day, so they're no longer in your repertoire of movement. And then your movement repertoire gets smaller and smaller, and in fact one's world gets smaller. You know, the less you can see around yourself to shoulder check, the harder it gets to move around. And I mean, you know, everybody got here fine tonight, but everybody's getting older, right? And so it's nice to keep these options open. Now, go ahead and bring your arms, and you can change the cross in your arms again. And move your elbows and your arms a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right. And your head, you move your head with. So let's say, now I'm talking on the mic, so I'm not moving my head. But you can turn, but make sure that your head and your arms and your chest move. Good. A couple of times each way, left and right. Good. And try it a couple of times like I'm doing it. I'm keeping my head forward, and I'm making the movement kind of particular. So I'm separating the movement of my head, so my head looking straight forward. Good. Great. Very nice. And notice your breathing. And don't forget that you've got a pelvis and legs and feet and all of that. Good. And let that go. And we're going to do one more thing, and then we'll come full circle to the test movement that you started with, which was kind of shoulder checking. So when you're doing this, don't do it to a place that's uncomfortable. It has to be sort of an easy movement. So go ahead and clasp your arms for one last time. And now bring your elbows forward a little bit, and imagine that there was a big spoon dangling and you were going to stir some soup. That's it. Now, ideally, and I'm seeing this happen all over the room, more than your elbows would move. If it's comfortable, bring your hands all the way to your shoulders. Then you'll get really, I don't want you to strain your shoulders, but if it's possible and easy, go ahead and move the whole darn thing. Well, the whole darn thing really is your chest and your ribs and your abdomen and your spine. And just about every part of you is involved in this, you know, kind of seemingly ordinary movement. Change directions. Notice that you probably went the direction that was the most familiar, just like with the hand clasp, right? But then this too becomes fairly easy and familiar after you've done it a few times. And make sure you're breathing. Good. Good. And let that go and do the original movement of looking up and looking down, and see if you don't include more of your spine and your arms and your shoulders. And you go up and down. Good. Let your arms go. Rest for a moment. Just let that. So your nervous system's taking in this, what's sort of called information, you could say, because you're doing something new. And your nervous system has the capacity to kind of sift through and look for new options. So go ahead and turn, do your shoulder check. So go turn to the right. Let your arms just be rest. Now this is normal. Now we've forgotten the lesson. Let your arms hang and just be normal and just turn to look to the right, turn to look to the left. Who went further? 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, it was only 5 minutes, right? So that's a pretty good result. So, and some people, did anybody get better without doing the lesson? No? Because sometimes you watch people do it and something can change. I'm not joking either. It's a really amazing phenomenon. So, does anyone have any questions? I could go in any number of directions, but I only want to spend another few minutes. So, thank you for your time. And if I've generated a little bit of interest, that's all that matters. I am called Moving Matters. Okay, so you can find me on movingmatters.ca. It should be on your handout. And yeah, so was there a question? Yes.
I was just wondering, does this sort of fall into the camp where you should always be learning something, like learning a new card game, learning a new skill, learning a new sport?
Great question. I'm going to repeat it for the camera. Does this fall into the camp of this sort of wave of learning where you should be, to improve your brain power as you age, you should be doing something new every day? Absolutely. I believe so. And the great thing is that it's, because it also involves movement, it's very integrating, because it's not just doing something for your brain, you're using your brain in order to bring new movement into your body, and you're using your body to create new neural pathways in your brain. But it is in that camp. Yeah. Yes?
And furthermore, why, it's just like a lot of things we do in life, we learn an efficient way for ourselves to do it.
Right.
You know, how we cook, or how we clean, or how
right.
we whatever.
Right.
Why isn't that good enough for your body? I don't understand how doing this
right. So
makes you a better, or like that person running a faster mile, or running.
Well, because, so the question here was why, if you've already developed the efficient means, and that's such a great question, because the method is actually based on that. If you've developed really efficient means to do your everyday tasks like cooking and whatever you'd love to do, why would you need to be more efficient? It goes back to what I said at the beginning about this, the things that you don't notice. So, you know, you can observe other people moving, sometimes that helps. So people have ways of doing things that in some ways are very efficient for them, but when it comes to using their body, how do I say this? What you think is efficient can sometimes get a little outmoded, because sometimes habit brings a kind of a dullness. So what is efficient in every moment really is about being aware in the present moment. And so this taps into a whole other camp called awareness and mindfulness. So by repeating something over and over again, there was a lady that talked about people going into the gym and they go, I know my routine. So they do it over and over, and they're practicing their habits. But they're not necessarily generating something new up here. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
I'm just wondering why you have to.
Oh, you don't have to do anything. But it's fun. Yeah.
I understand the getting your brain to work to learn something new. But on the other hand, I don't really understand why doing the same thing at the gym or whatever. It's a problem.
It's not necessarily a problem, but nothing gets learned. And you actually brought up the fact that there's this whole this wave of learning. So that's why it's important, because you could say the same thing to the learning, the brain gym folks, or the doing the crossword puzzle every day camp. Why? Why would you bother? Well, because you want to keep alive. It's a vitality practice, which is actually kind of a good way of putting it. It's a vitality practice, yeah. Yeah, and when you do it, then you experience that vitality and you go, oh, wow, I was doing it this way, and that was okay, that was great, it served me. But there's this whole other world available to me that I didn't realize. And I can keep learning how to use my whole self, not just my body, but my brain and my movement for the rest of my life. So, yeah, because it can just be done in small things like the hand, as you saw. So thank you. Any other questions? Hi.
So the various participants in the video talked about going to classes. So my question, is it like a beginners and intermediate, advanced classes, or?
Okay. Yeah. So the question here is that do you have to kind of progress through beginner, intermediate, advanced? I offer public classes that I have people who've been coming for years and people who've never been. And so because there's always some, because if you did this every day, you could do it out of habit. You could just do it by rote. You could just go, oh yeah, I know that hand thing. Or every day, you could actually stop every other thing you were doing and attend to it, and you would notice the subtlety. This is kind of a subtle example, but if you apply that kind of awareness to the movements. Now the movement sequences are based on kind of things like martial arts and how babies learn. She referenced that. So they're very gentle, and they use your awareness of how your body works. So you kind of become a student of your own biomechanics. Yeah. And so you'd be welcome in any class. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.